The story of the Roman Empire begins not with an empire, but with a legend, a story that blends myth, destiny, and the birth of one of the most powerful civilizations in human history. According to Roman mythology, the city of Rome was founded in 753 BC by two twin brothers, Romulus and Remus. The story tells that they were abandoned as infants and raised by a she-wolf in the wilderness. As they grew older, they decided to build a city. But a conflict arose between them, and Romulus killed Remus, becoming the first king of Rome. While historians debate the accuracy of this legend, it reflects something important. Rome was born from struggle, ambition, and conflict. In reality, early Rome began as a small settlement near the Tiber River in central Italy. Its location was strategic. The river provided water and trade routes, while nearby hills offered protection from enemies. Before Rome became a republic or empire, it was ruled by kings. From 753 BC to around 509 BC, Rome was governed by a series of monarchs. Some of these kings were believed to be of Etruscan origin, a powerful civilization that influenced early Roman culture, architecture, religion, and engineering. The Etruscans introduced advanced construction techniques, including roads, drainage systems, and urban planning. They also influenced Roman religious practices, including the interpretation of omens and rituals. However, the Roman people eventually grew dissatisfied with monarchical rule. The final king of Rome, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, was known for his tyranny and abuse of power. His rule created fear and anger among the Roman population. According to historical tradition, a major turning point came after a tragic event involving Lucretia, a noblewoman whose suffering under royal authority sparked outrage across Rome. In 509 BC, the Roman people revolted against the monarchy. The kings were expelled, and Rome transformed into something entirely new, a republic. The Roman Republic introduced a system of governance that was revolutionary for its time. Instead of one ruler, power was divided among elected officials. Two consuls were chosen each year to lead the government and command the army. This system ensured that no single individual could easily gain absolute power. The Senate became one of the most important institutions in Roman politics. It consisted of elite members from powerful families who advised leaders and influenced decisions. Although the Republic claimed to represent the people, it was not fully democratic by modern standards. Society was divided into two major classes: the patricians, wealthy aristocrats who held most political power; the plebeians, common citizens who had fewer rights and limited influence. Over time, plebeians demanded more rights, leading to political struggles known as the conflict of the orders. This resulted in important reforms, including the creation of the tribune, an official who protected the rights of common people. Rome's early success came not only from its political system, but also from its military strength. The Roman army was highly disciplined, organized, and adaptable. Soldiers trained rigorously and followed strict command structures. Unlike many ancient armies, Roman forces could quickly adapt tactics depending on the enemy. As Rome expanded, it conquered neighboring territories across Italy. Each victory strengthened the Republic's influence and resources. But expansion also brought new challenges. Rome encountered powerful enemies, including the Greek colonies in southern Italy and the Carthaginian Empire across the Mediterranean. One of the most famous conflicts in Roman history was against Carthage, a wealthy and powerful trading empire based in North Africa. This series of wars became known as the Punic Wars. During the Second Punic War, 218–101 BC, a brilliant Carthaginian general named Hannibal launched one of the most daring military campaigns in history. He led his army, including war elephants, across the Alps into Italy. The invasion shocked Rome. Hannibal won several major battles, including the devastating Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, where tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed. For years, Rome stood on the edge of destruction, yet despite these defeats, Rome refused to surrender. Instead, Roman general Scipio Africanus launched a counterattack directly against Carthage in North Africa. In 202 BC, at the Battle of Zama, Scipio defeated Hannibal, ending the war and securing Roman dominance in the western Mediterranean. This victory marked a turning point. Rome was no longer just a regional power, it was becoming a global force. Over the next centuries, Rome expanded across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, but with expansion came internal problems. Wealth inequality increased, political corruption grew, power struggles intensified. The Roman Republic, once built on shared governance, began showing signs of instability. Ambitious leaders sought more control, generals gained loyalty from soldiers instead of the state, and slowly, the system that had made Rome strong began to weaken. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic transformations in history, the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. By the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic stood as one of the most powerful political systems in the Mediterranean world. Its armies had conquered vast territories across Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia. Wealth flowed into Rome from every direction. Yet, beneath this success, the foundations of the Republic were beginning to crack. Expansion had created serious internal problems. As Rome conquered new lands, enormous wealth poured into the hands of elite families. Large estates known as latifundia replaced small farms, pushing many ordinary citizens out of work. Displaced farmers migrated to cities where poverty and unemployment increased. At the same time, Roman generals began gaining more power than ever before. Soldiers were no longer loyal primarily to the state. They were loyal to their commanders, who provided them with land, wealth, and rewards after military campaigns. This shift would prove dangerous. One of the earliest signs of crisis came with reformers like the Gracchi brothers, who attempted to redistribute land to the poor. Their efforts led to political violence, and both were eventually killed. This marked a turning point. Violence had entered Roman politics. Soon after, powerful military leaders began competing for control. Two major figures emerged, Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Their rivalry led to civil war. Sulla ultimately marched his army into Rome, something previously unthinkable, and declared himself dictator in 82 BC. He used brutal purges known as proscriptions to eliminate enemies. Although he later stepped down, the damage to the Republic was permanent. The idea that a general could seize power by force had now been proven possible. In the years that followed, Rome was dominated by ambitious leaders seeking control. One of the most famous political alliances in history formed during this time, the First Triumvirate. It consisted of three powerful men, Julius Caesar Pompey, the great Marcus Licinius Crassus together. They controlled Roman politics through influence, military strength, and wealth. However, this alliance was unstable. After Crassus died in battle in 53 BC, tensions grew between Caesar and Pompey. The Senate, fearing Caesar's rising power, ordered him to give up command of his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Instead, Caesar made a decision that would change history forever. In 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River with his army, an act of open rebellion against the Republic. According to legend, Caesar declared, "The die is cast." Civil war followed. Caesar defeated Pompey's forces and became the most powerful man in Rome. In 44 BC, he was declared dictator for life. While many admired his leadership and reforms, others feared he intended to become a king, something Romans deeply opposed. On March 15, 44 BC, a day known as the Ides of March, Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators. Among them was Brutus, once a trusted ally of Caesar. The conspirators believed they were saving the Republic. Instead, they plunged Rome into even greater chaos. Following Caesar's death, another power struggle began. A new alliance formed, the Second Triumvirate, consisting of Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir Mark Antony Lepidus. Together, they defeated Caesar's assassins at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. But just like the previous alliance, this one did not last. Rivalries grew, especially between Octavian and Mark Antony. Antony formed a political and romantic alliance with Cleopatra, which alarmed Rome. Octavian used this relationship to portray Antony as a traitor influenced by a foreign queen. In 31 BC, their conflict reached its climax at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's forces defeated Antony and Cleopatra's navy. Soon after, both Antony and Cleopatra died, leaving Octavian as the undisputed ruler of Rome. In 27 BC, Octavian took a new title, Augustus. He did not call himself king. Instead, he presented himself as the first citizen of Rome, but in reality, Augustus held supreme power. This marked the official end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. Augustus carefully maintained the appearance of republican institutions while controlling the military, finances, and government. His rule brought stability after decades of civil war. This period became known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For nearly 200 years, the empire experienced relative stability, economic growth, and cultural development. Cities expanded, roads connected distant regions, trade flourished, and Roman law spread across vast territories. The transformation from republic to empire was complete, but this new system came with its own risks. Power was now concentrated in one ruler. The future of Rome would depend heavily on the strength, wisdom, and character of its emperors. Some would lead Rome to greatness, others would push it toward chaos. The Roman Empire had risen, but its greatest challenges still lay ahead. With the rise of Augustus in 27 BC, the Roman world entered a new era, one that would be remembered as the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. This period, lasting roughly from 27 BC to 180 AD, marked the height of Roman power, stability, and cultural achievement. After decades of brutal civil wars, Augustus understood something crucial. Rome did not need more chaos. It needed order. Instead of ruling as an obvious dictator, Augustus carefully reshaped the system. He kept the Senate and traditional institutions alive, but real authority remained in his hands. He controlled the army, managed finances, and influenced laws, all while maintaining the illusion that the Republic still existed. This clever strategy helped prevent rebellion. Rome finally stabilized. Under Augustus, major reforms transformed the empire. He reorganized the military, ensuring soldiers were loyal to the state rather than individual generals. He created a professional standing army and established the Praetorian Guard, elite troops responsible for protecting the emperor. He also improved tax systems, built infrastructure, and expanded public services. Rome began to flourish. Massive construction projects changed the appearance of the capital. Augustus famously claimed, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." Temples, forums, roads, aqueducts, and theaters were built across the empire. One of the most iconic structures that symbolized Roman engineering and culture came slightly later, the Colosseum. This massive amphitheater could hold over 50 spectators and hosted gladiator battles, animal hunts, and public spectacles. It represented both the power and the entertainment culture of Rome, but Rome's greatness was not just in its buildings. Its strength came from expansion and control. At its peak, the Roman Empire stretched from Britain in the northwest to Egypt in the southeast, and from Spain in the west to parts of the Middle East in the east. This vast territory connected different cultures, languages, and peoples under one system. To manage such a large empire, Rome built one of the most advanced infrastructure networks of the ancient world. Roman roads stretched over 400 kilometers, allowing armies, traders, and officials to move quickly across regions. The famous phrase, "all roads lead to Rome," reflected this incredible network. Trade flourished across the empire. Grain from Egypt fed the population. Silk from Asia reached Roman markets. Wine, olive oil, metals, and goods moved across land and sea. Roman ports became centers of economic activity. Cities grew rapidly. Urban life in Rome and other major cities included public baths, markets, temples, libraries, and entertainment venues. Roman law also became one of the empire's greatest achievements. Legal systems were developed to govern citizens and non-citizens across different regions. These laws influenced future legal systems in Europe and beyond. Citizenship expanded over time, giving more people rights and a sense of belonging within the empire. Yet despite all this progress, Roman society was not equal. Slavery played a major role in the economy. Enslaved people worked in homes, farms, mines, and construction projects. Some were highly educated and worked as teachers or advisors, while others faced brutal conditions. The empire's prosperity came at a human cost. Following Augustus, a series of emperors ruled Rome, some wise, others destructive. The period, known as the Five Good Emperors, brought stability and prosperity. Among them was Trajan, under whom the empire reached its greatest territorial size. Another was Hadrian, who focused on strengthening borders rather than expanding further. He built defensive structures like Hadrian's Wall in Britain to protect Roman territory. Later came Marcus Aurelius, known not only as a ruler but also as a thinker. His writings, especially Meditations, remain influential even today. These emperors helped maintain peace and stability across the empire, but not all rulers were wise. Some emperors became symbols of corruption, cruelty, and excess. Figures like Nero gained notoriety for tyranny and extravagance. Stories of his rule include persecution, executions, and the infamous Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. Whether all stories about Nero are accurate or exaggerated, they reflect growing instability within the imperial system. The Pax Romana, despite its name, was not completely peaceful. Rome still faced threats from external enemies. Germanic tribes challenged northern borders. Eastern conflicts continued with the Parthian Empire. Maintaining control over such a vast territory required constant military presence. And slowly, cracks began to appear. Economic inequality increased. Political corruption grew. Power struggles returned. The system that Augustus created depended heavily on strong leadership, but as time passed, not every emperor could maintain that balance. By the late 2nd century AD, after the death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 AD, the Pax Romana came to an end. The empire began entering a new phase, one of crisis, instability, and transformation. The golden age of Rome had reached its peak. And like all great empires, the question was no longer how it would grow, but how long it could survive. After the death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 AD, the Roman Empire began to change in ways that would slowly lead to its decline. The long period of stability known as the Pax Romana ended, and what followed was one of the most chaotic eras in Roman history, a time of crisis, instability, and transformation. Marcus Aurelius was the last of the 5 good emperors, and his death marked the end of strong, consistent leadership. His son Commodus succeeded him, but unlike his father, Commodus proved to be an ineffective and controversial ruler. He was more interested in personal entertainment and gladiatorial games than governance. His behavior shocked Roman elites. He even fought as a gladiator in the arena, something considered disgraceful for an emperor. Under Commodus, political stability began to weaken. After his assassination in 192 AD, Rome entered a dangerous period known as the Year of the 5 Emperors, where multiple leaders fought for control of the throne. This marked the beginning of a much larger crisis. Between 235 AD and 284 AD, the Roman Empire faced what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century, one of the most unstable periods in its history. By the 4th and 5th centuries AD, the Roman Empire was no longer the unstoppable force it once had been. Although reforms by Diocletian and Constantine the Great had temporarily stabilized the system, deep-rooted problems continued to grow beneath the surface. The most important change was the permanent division of the empire. After the death of Emperor Theodosius I in 395 AD, the Roman Empire was officially split into 2 separate entities: the Western Roman Empire, capital eventually in Ravenna, the Eastern Roman Empire, capital in Constantinople. This division would define the future of Europe and the Mediterranean world. The Eastern Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, remained wealthy, organized, and relatively stable. But the Western Roman Empire was far weaker. Its economy was declining, its cities were shrinking, its military struggled to defend vast borders, and its political system was collapsing under corruption and instability. One of the biggest threats came from outside, migrating tribes often called barbarians by the Romans. These groups were not necessarily uncivilized, but they lived outside Roman control and had different cultures and systems. Among the most significant were the Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Huns. A major turning point came in 376 AD when the Visigoths, fleeing pressure from the Huns, were allowed to enter Roman territory. However, poor treatment and corruption by Roman officials led to rebellion. In 378 AD, the Roman army faced the Visigoths at the Battle of Adrianople. The result was disastrous. The Romans were defeated, and Emperor Valens was killed in battle. This was one of the worst military defeats in Roman history. It proved something shocking. Rome was no longer invincible. In the years that followed, barbarian groups continued entering Roman lands, sometimes as invaders, sometimes as settlers. The empire increasingly relied on these groups as soldiers, weakening its own identity and control. Then came one of the most symbolic events in Roman history. In 410 AD, the city of Rome itself was attacked and looted by the Visigoths under their leader, Alaric I. For nearly 800 years, Rome had not fallen to a foreign enemy. The sack of Rome shocked the entire ancient world. Although the city was no longer the political capital, it remained a powerful symbol. Its fall represented the weakening of Roman power. But even worse was yet to come. In 455 AD, Rome was attacked again, this time by the Vandals. They looted the city for 2 weeks, taking valuables, treasures, and prisoners. The term vandalism later came from this event. Meanwhile, another terrifying force rose in Europe, Attila the Hun. Attila led devastating campaigns across Roman territories. His armies destroyed cities and spread fear across both the Eastern and Western empires. Although he never permanently captured Rome, his invasions weakened the already fragile system. Inside the empire, leadership continued to deteriorate. Emperors changed frequently. Many were controlled by powerful generals or political factions. Real authority often lay in the hands of military leaders rather than emperors themselves. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Empire had become a shadow of its former self. Its territory had shrunk, its economy was broken, its military was unreliable, and its leadership was ineffective. Finally, in 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire came to an end. A Germanic leader named Odoacer removed the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Romulus was only a young boy, and his removal was almost symbolic. Odoacer did not declare himself emperor. Instead, he ruled Italy as king, marking the end of Roman imperial rule in the West. This moment is traditionally considered the fall of the Western Roman Empire. However, it was not a sudden collapse. It was the result of centuries of slow decline, political instability, economic weakness, military problems, external invasions, internal corruption. All of these factors combined to bring down one of the greatest empires in history. But while the West fell, the Eastern Roman Empire continued. From its capital at Constantinople, it survived for nearly another 1,000 years. Today, historians call it the Byzantine Empire, so in a way, Rome did not completely die, it transformed. The legacy of Rome lived on through law, language, architecture, governance, and culture. Even after its fall, the influence of Rome shaped the future of Europe and the modern world. The empire that once ruled the known world had collapsed, but its story was far from over, because even in its fall, Rome became immortal. Even though the Western Roman Empire officially fell in 476 AD, the story of Rome did not end there. In many ways, it had only just begun. The influence of Rome extended far beyond its political existence, shaping civilizations, governments, cultures, and ideas that still define the modern world. Rome did not just build an empire, it built a legacy. One of the most powerful contributions of Rome was its legal system. Roman law became the foundation for many modern legal systems used across Europe and beyond. Concepts such as equality before the law, legal contracts, property rights, and trial procedures can all be traced back to Roman legal principles. Even today, courts around the world still reflect ideas developed in ancient Rome. Another lasting impact came through language. Latin, the language of the Romans, became the root of many modern languages including Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. These are known as the Romance languages. Even English, though not a Romance language, contains a huge number of Latin and derived words, especially in law, science, and medicine. Words like justice, civil, legal, and senate all come from Latin origins. Roman influence is everywhere, even in the words we speak daily. The Roman system of governance also shaped modern political structures. The idea of a republic, where citizens elect representatives to govern, was inspired by the early Roman Republic. Modern democracies, including governments in Europe and the United States, reflect elements of Roman political organization such as senates, constitutions, and checks on power. Rome also revolutionized engineering and architecture. Roman engineers built roads, bridges, aqueducts, and buildings that were far ahead of their time. Their road networks connected vast territories. allowing trade, communication, and military movement. Some of these roads are still visible today. Aqueducts carried fresh water into cities, supporting large populations and improving public health. Concrete, developed and perfected by Roman builders, allowed for the construction of massive structures like domes and arches. The Colosseum and the Pantheon are still studied by architects and engineers for their design and durability. The Roman arch and dome became essential features in construction for centuries afterward. Culturally, Rome influenced art, literature, and philosophy. Roman writers, historians, and poets such as Virgil, Cicero, and Ovid shaped Western literature and intellectual thought. Their works are still studied in schools and universities around the world. Roman mythology, heavily influenced by Greek traditions, also became deeply embedded in Western culture. Gods like Jupiter, Mars, and Venus continue to appear in literature, art, and even the names of planets. Religion also played a major role in Rome's legacy. One of the most significant transformations in Roman history occurred when Christianity spread across the empire. Under Constantine the Great, Christianity was legalized in 313 AD through the Edict of Milan. Later, it became the official religion of the empire. After the fall of Rome, the Christian Church preserved many Roman traditions, texts, and knowledge during the Middle Ages. The city of Rome itself became the center of the Roman Catholic Church, giving it continued global importance. The Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, carried Roman traditions forward for nearly another 1,000 years. From its capital in Constantinople, it preserved Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian traditions until its fall in 1453. Even after that, Roman influence spread further. The Renaissance in Europe, beginning in the 14th century, revived interest in Roman and Greek knowledge. Artists, scholars, and thinkers looked back to ancient Rome for inspiration in art, science, and philosophy. This movement helped shape the modern world. The idea of citizenship, public duty, and civic responsibility, all central to Roman identity, also continue to influence societies today. However, Rome's legacy is not only about achievements, it also offers lessons. The fall of the Roman Empire teaches us about the dangers of political corruption, economic inequality, overexpansion, and internal division. It reminds us that even the most powerful civilizations can decline if they fail to adapt and maintain unity. Historians often study Rome not just to understand the past, but to learn about the present and future. Why do empires rise? Why do they fall? Rome provides some of the most important answers. Today, millions of people visit ancient Roman sites across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. They walk through ruins, amphitheaters, temples, and roads built thousands of years ago. Standing in these places creates a powerful realization. Rome may be gone as an empire, but it is still alive in the world around us. In our laws, in our languages, in our governments, in our architecture, in our culture, the Roman Empire was not just a chapter in history. It became a foundation for civilization itself, and perhaps that is Rome's greatest achievement, not that it ruled the world, but that it helped shape it forever. The fall of the Roman Empire in 476 CE is one of the most debated and studied turning points in world history. It did not happen overnight, nor was it caused by a single event. Instead, it was the result of a long and complex combination of political instability, economic decline, military pressure, and social transformation. The end of Rome marked the transition from the ancient world into the medieval era, reshaping Europe and the global historical trajectory. One of the most significant internal problems was political instability. In the later centuries of the empire, especially after the 3rd century CE, Rome experienced constant changes in leadership. Emperors rose and fell rapidly, often through assassination, military coups, or civil war. This period, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, saw dozens of emperors ruling in quick succession. With no stable leadership, long-term governance became impossible. The empire became divided between the Eastern and Western Roman empires in 395 CE, weakening its unity further. While the Eastern Empire, Byzantium, survived, the Western Empire struggled to maintain control. Another major factor was economic decline. Rome's economy relied heavily on conquest and expansion, which brought in slaves, wealth, and resources. However, as expansion slowed, these resources diminished. The empire faced inflation, heavy taxation, and a shrinking workforce. Many farmers abandoned their land due to high taxes and insecurity, leading to reduced agricultural production. Trade routes became unsafe due to constant invasions, and cities began to shrink. The economic system that once supported Rome's greatness slowly collapsed under its own weight. The military crisis also played a crucial role. The Roman army, once the strongest force in the ancient world, became increasingly difficult to maintain. As recruitment declined, Rome relied heavily on foreign soldiers, especially Germanic tribes. While these soldiers were effective in battle, their loyalty often lay with their own leaders rather than Rome itself. This created internal divisions and weakened military discipline. At the same time, Rome faced constant pressure from external groups, such as the Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns, who pushed deeper into Roman territory. One of the most famous events in this decline was the invasion by the Visigoths in 410 CE, led by King Alaric. For the first time in nearly 800 years, the city of Rome itself was sacked. This shocking event revealed how vulnerable the once invincible empire had become. Later, in 455 CE, the Vandals also attacked and plundered Rome, further weakening its authority and morale. Another important cause was social and cultural transformation. As the empire expanded, it became increasingly difficult to maintain a unified Roman identity. The population became more diverse, and loyalty to Rome weakened in many regions. Local leaders and provincial authorities gained more power, reducing central control. Traditional Roman values of civic duty and discipline began to fade, replaced by regional interests and survival instincts. In 476 CE, the final collapse of the Western Roman Empire occurred when the Germanic leader Odoacer deposed the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Interestingly, this emperor was only a young boy and had little real power. Odoacer did not claim the title of emperor himself, but instead ruled Italy as a king under the nominal authority of the Eastern Roman Emperor. This event is traditionally marked as the end of ancient Rome in the West. However, the fall of Rome was not a sudden disappearance of civilization. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, continued for nearly another 1,000 years until the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Roman traditions, laws, and culture also survived through the medieval kingdoms of Europe, shaping future nations. In conclusion, the fall of Rome was not the result of one catastrophe, but a gradual weakening of a vast and complex system. Political corruption, economic struggles, military overextension, and external invasions all combined to bring down one of history's greatest empires. Yet even in its fall, Rome did not vanish, it transformed. Its ideas, systems, and legacy continued to shape the world long after its political end, proving that Rome's influence extended far beyond the lifespan of its empire.